Hello, my name is Liz Slynn, and for the next few minutes I'd like to talk to you about suicide, and in particular the suicide of my daughter Philippa. Philippa died in February 2015. She was 33, she was beautiful, she was very clever, and she was talented. But she was in pain, she was in a lot of pain. She was in pain in her mind, and she was in pain physically from a skin condition. She'd been in pain in her mind probably for most of her life. She wanted to be an actor, she wanted to be a writer, very hard professions in which to achieve. She lived in London and bumbled along in the underground network of acting and writing, making a lot of people very happy with what she wrote and what she performed. But it wasn't enough for Philippa, and she would tumble from depression to depression. In November 2014, she developed a very painful skin condition. The coroner, who had been a dermatologist, said that she would have wanted to tear herself apart with the pain, and so she did. And she made a decision on that terrible day in February, probably about the 12th, although her body was found on the 14th, to take her own life in her room in London. It was the most devastating piece of news I think we've ever had. I knew she wasn't well, but when the police knocked on our door in Cornwall, where we were staying, they tracked us down. I knew as soon as my husband looked out of the window and said it was the police, I knew. And as I came down the stairs, the police sergeant said to me, "Could you tell me your name?" And I told him my name, and I said, "Is it Philippa?" And he very sensibly said, "Yes. Shall we sit down?" He didn't say, "Shall we sit down?" and kept me in tenterhooks. He confirmed what he knew that I knew. And then began my journey. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I sent my husband back to bed. He was her stepfather, so involved, but not quite as involved as her real father was. I sent him back to bed because I knew he'd have to drive us home. I paced the garden under the moon and the stars, listening to the sea all night. And I had an overwhelming desire to walk and to never stop walking, just to walk and walk and walk. And that's what I did. The next morning I contacted many of her friends so they wouldn't see it in any other way but hear it from me. And we set off on our journey back to Hampshire. And I walked. Some days I only walked a step. Some days that meant getting up, getting dressed, putting my earrings in, putting some makeup on, and perhaps not doing anything else for the rest of the day. But it was part of my journey. Other days I took a few steps, so I'd go out for a walk, take the dog out, see some friends. I was blessed to have a huge number of friends in my church and in my life. I had a fantastic family, and so I was supported, and I still am supported 7.5 years later by many, many friends. Sadly, my dad, who had spent his life laughing and whistling his way along and who adored Philippa, decided a few months later that he'd had enough, really. It knocked him off his perch and he died, but he was 93, so it was kind of okay. So our family were devastated, really, all round. But what kept me walking was for my other two children, Philippa's siblings. I learnt a lot about the impact of suicide on siblings and how it puts them at risk. And so the days when I didn't want to get up, I got up for the sake of my children, my husband, who still needed me, my parents, and then my mum, who ended up alone, and all the other people who loved and needed Philippa. And I did everything possible, and I still do everything possible, to survive that shock through my system, that shock that shattered me all through the outside. But there was something that kept me strong inside and kept me going. I've done the things to try and help people who are feeling suicidal, people who support people with suicide, and this is one of those things that I do. I'm making this video for you. I really believe that although Philippa wanted to be at peace, she said in her last note, "I need to be free." And she is free and she is at peace. And I know that's what she wanted. But I do believe that everybody is worth it, is worth living for, and is worth living. So please, if you are supporting someone who is suicidal, or if you're in tremendous pain and want to tear yourself apart, just remember this, that you're worth it to someone, that you're valued, that someone is going to miss you if you go. So I ask you, do you know where to go for help?